Automation Nation, Automation Nation, Automation Nation, around the nation. Automation Nation, Automation Nation, Automation Nation, around the nation, around the nation, around the nation. Welcome to the Automation Nation podcast, the show for business leaders, tech aficionados, and those who are just simply curious about where technology and business are going. Automation Nation is your gateway to understanding automation, AI, and the future of business. Don't get left behind. Tune in now and subscribe for more. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Automation Nation podcast. I'm your host, Rob Howes. I got a great guest, Heidi Melton, is in the virtual house with me. We're going to have an automation conversation. I just love talking to people who have insight in various industries on how automation is being used and how they're winning, how they're seen winning. I think it's really big when people who have experienced a win get a chance to talk about what that looks like. I think it resonates with people who could be currently having some of those similar pain points.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I just jumped right into the episode. I think I just jumped right in.
I feel like we definitely did that for sure, but let's bring it on. Let's do this.
Well, Heidi, first of all, thanks for being here, and thank you all for watching, wherever you're watching this from. And if you're listening to this, remember you can connect with Heidi. To go down into the description, and you can click on her name and see everything she's doing. And I'm going to read a little bit of her bio here from LinkedIn. She's a results-driven sales and operations expert with a passion for maximizing growth and driving customer acquisition. With a proven track record of consistently exceeding sales goals by 120% plus year over year. That's good. Pretty good. It gets better.
A little flex there.
A little flex. Hey, listen, you went to the gym, show the muscles, okay? She brings a relentless drive to achieve results and make a lasting impact. I like that. But this is my favorite part. Her expertise lies in developing and implementing strategic plans that drive business growth, optimize sales processes, and foster long-lasting customer relationships. That's called retention, folks. Welcome, Heidi.
Hello.
That's good. I'm so glad you're here. Now let me get this out so I can see you now. Great. All right. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a conversation here. Heidi, why don't you just kind of share a little bit about yourself so people can know where all this knowledge is coming from? Okay. And then we're going to jump into some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on. This is so much fun. I love being able to come on here and share a little bit of information that I've gathered throughout my experience, and then obviously have a conversation with others who maybe want to learn or are facing some challenges and have some questions. So thank you so much for that. So to kind of dive right in a little bit more about me, I have a very diverse background, but I always say to people, I'm an expert in sales and revenue generating opportunities. And what that usually looks like is it's usually from the acquisition of the lead all the way through the project development. So, and in that process, I'm always working with the operations team. And we're constantly having conversations of not only how to improve our internal strategies and processes for the customer, because at the end of the day, the customer needs to be happy. So that way we can retain their business and then obviously have future opportunities. But there's always those external conversations as well to see, how can we improve, but also how can we grow our business. So that's a little bit about me as far as just kind of generality. But right now, where I find my true passion is in manufacturing. So the making of things. And I tell people I basically live the real world of how it's made. And I absolutely love it.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Great intro. And it's good to love what you do, because that means you're going to do a pretty good job at it. I learned that over the years. If you got love in it, you're going to do a really good job at it. So Heidi, we asked all our guests this first question. We actually have two questions we asked all our guests. Okay, so we're powered by Simply Automate. And so we asked this question: if you could simply automate one thing in your personal life, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a great question. If I could simply automate anything, it would probably be, at the end of the day, my overall life schedule, like
Yeah.
not just, my calendar and, that kind of thing. Cause I know there's
Yeah.
Calendly and all those tools out
Mm-hmm.
there,
Mm-hmm.
but it would probably be my overall life schedule. So that looks like, my meal planning and my emails and my tasks and what does that look like? So
Mm.
probably automating that kind of life schedule, if you
Oh
will.
man, that's good. That sounds
What
like that's
about what
happening
about
within.
what about you, Rob? I got to know what would you
Oh,
automate?
interesting. No one's ever asked me that because and so I've had the pleasure of like hearing everyone else's. But I think you summarize it because honestly, seriously, Heidi, everyone comes in. They say either the clothes, they say, or the kids are going to school, or they're making the food, or making the beds, like all these different things. That's all part of their schedule. So I would like to automate every single thing that I have to do repetitively, whatever it is. If it's done
Mhm.
again, I want it to be automated. So
Yeah.
that's a real big claim, but that's not that far away. It really isn't.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've made a like a tremendous. It's almost like we were skipping over the last couple centuries, and then we just took a huge gallop, like a giant sized gallop. And so we're going to talk about that gallop because you've seen it. You've seen it in your space, and so because first of all, how long have you been in business? How long have you been in the space?
Well, so manufacturing, I've been adjacent to manufacturing for I'd say probably 5 years,
Okay.
but
Okay.
actually like in manufacturing about 2.5.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as manufacturing goes, I've been in the world of manufacturing my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's brother, my dad's dad, they all
Oh.
were in manufacturing. So
Oh.
I've lived the world of life, the life of manufacturing, but as far as actually being in it myself, it's either adjacently or just here recently in the thick of it. So,
That's so good. Wow.
yeah.
That's in the family. We say that's in the blood.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll never forget it when I think I was like maybe 10 years old and my dad took me to a plant 11 there in Anderson, Indiana.
Okay.
And there's this room that they tested the generators to see if there was any vibrational sound. And I'm a very talkative, loquacious little kid. And my dad said, go ahead and try to scream in this room because they had the whole room, soundproof. So that way they could hear the very like small little sounds that the generators would make.
Yeah.
And I screamed as loud as I possibly could, and you could not hear it. And it was just the coolest thing to see
Oh,
just like that small little thing in an R&D room. And I thought, okay, if that is here in manufacturing, what else
what
is
else?
here? Exactly.
Oh yeah. How old were you then?
I think I was like maybe 7 or 10. I
Oh
can't
yeah.
remember, but
That was that.
I was pretty young.
Yeah, that was a spark. That was a spark. And that at that age, our imagination is untouched. Like you as you get older, people say no a lot. You can't do this, can't do that. Imagination shrinks a little bit. As a kid, mm-mm. Hey, listen,
Mhm.
they can have a whole world around them. So
Yep.
that experience for you, that's so good. So that experience got you pumped, and you wanted to learn more. Okay, so now we fast forward to today, and so
Mhm.
what? How have you seen automation help when it comes to like streamlining manufacturing processes and the overall sales performance? I know it's a big one, but go ahead and take your
Yeah.
time with that. And what have you
Yeah.
seen? Cody?
Yeah, yeah. So, let me kind of dissect that a little bit, because, like you said, it is a pretty big question. So, from the manufacturing, as far as streamlining processes on the automation side, our manufacturing is kind of looked at in kind of two different worlds. There's the plant floor, and then there's the corporate side. So the plant floor, there's so many ways that our teams automate manufacturing now. There's, robotics and vision systems, which is what my company specializes in. And then there are other ways that we're automating, like and more mechanical conveyors and, different processes that really help our manufacturing streamline their output. Now, on the corporate side, which is more of that like SaaS part of the automation, which I believe is where, Simply Automate AI lives, is probably where a lot of our corporate individuals will see the benefit in their daily life, like automating their emails and automating their, CRM, et cetera. So as far as like overall manufacturing, almost everybody has been touched at some point here in the last 5 years um, on the software side of really automating their processes. But on the manufacturing floor, it's kind of interesting because we've been having a lot of conversations around AI because it's a very sexy topic right now.
Mm-hmm.
But AI has actually been around manufacturing since like the early 70s, and people just don't know about it because manufacturing is just a very highly industrial space. And it's like this what's behind the curtain, what's behind the closed doors that people don't get to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And AI really has started, behind that manufacturing curtain a long time ago. And so it's really interesting to start hearing these buzzwords around AI and what does it look like? And,
Yeah.
what is an LLM versus, our visual AIs
Mm-hmm.
and what are our industrial robots doing? So it's interesting how it's impacted our space. But I will say from an overall output, automating manufacturing, whether it's from a 100% manual process to a fully automated process,
Mm.
we see, our operators and our physical manufacturing floors, once they start automating processes, like as a great example, I had a customer automate just one portion of their process, and it literally took their company for that line 300% increase their profitability 300%. I mean, you can't get that anywhere else. You can't force somebody to, you know, work harder and longer hours and increase that type of profitability for their company.
Wow.
It's
Wow. Wait a
incredible.
minute.
Yeah.
Wait 1 second. We're going to pause right there. You got to talk about that one more time. What just happened again?
Yeah.
They changed
Yeah.
one
So,
thing because sometimes it is that one change, Heidi. It's so interesting.
yeah.
Say that
Yeah.
again, please.
So, yeah. So, like in manufacturing processes, there's the raw materials all the way to where the end customer is being shipped the product in the logistics side. So I'm trying to like kind of make this as simple as possible for our listeners. But basically, raw materials will come into a manufacturing facility, and then things are made with those raw materials. And then throughout that process, through our what we call manufacturing lines, the product is then developed into whatever it's made. So like this cup as an example is being made somewhere in a facility.
Mm,
So that raw material is then broken down, it's molded or created, it's then tested or quality checked, and then it's packaged, and then it's shipped out.
mm,
In some places, depending on variable factors, like it could be safety. So, let's say in a specific manufacturing facility, they're seeing a lot of injuries or even potential fatalities from a specific process.
mm,
That's very costly for the company. And
mm.
obviously, they don't want to have those types of safety risks.
Right.
So, that's one element. There
Mm-hmm.
could also be a lot of scrap or quality issues. So like if you're, shipping this cup out the door and it has a lot of issues and then customers are shipping it back, the cost of, that product being shipped back is a lot. So the scrap could be a part of where there could be improvements made. And then obviously right now a huge, huge issue, and a lot of our manufacturers are seeing this everywhere. It's worldwide, is a labor shortage. We don't have enough labor to fulfill our orders.
Mm.
And so that could be a part of where the line could be automated as well. So, in the example I gave,
Yeah.
we automated a very specific portion of that line I described
Mm,
where we were able to make a process improvement that used to be manual that is now 100% automated,
mm,
and they've
mm.
seen a 300% increase in both their output and ROI for that specific product line.
That's great.
Yeah.
That is great. And that kind of leads into one of my next questions, like how do you approach this that's about growth. I would say that uh is very helpful when it comes to growth. So you kind of already started, but when you're approaching, you know, the strategic plan for growth, let's talk about how you see that, Heidi, for
Yeah.
manufacturing business.
Yeah. So strategy is an interesting one, and I love it because uh, I always say that you can't see a result without a plan because it's just a wish. I'm sure that's a quote somewhere out there. I've heard it probably a million times. But at the same time, you can't see those results without the execution. So developing a strategic plan is only as good as the execution of the plan. So just for all the listeners out there, like feel free to spend as much time as you want on that strategic plan, but if you don't have any actual abilities or motivation to put any execution into it, I wouldn't waste your time.
Mm,
Um, However, building a strategic plan starts with the end in mind. So, what does that end result look like for your company? Start there and then backtrack. And then utilize your internal resources with their strengths. And then if you need to fill in the gaps, that's where you can hire,
mm,
people like the Simply Automate, people like myself with IDI. There's so many opportunities to fill in that strategic gap where your internal stakeholders and
mm.
partners can't help you fulfill.
Yeah, that's good. So you said you got to do both, huh? You got to do both of those things, huh? It's like so you have to actually plan and execute. Wait a minute. So we have to actually plan it, and we have to actually do it. It reminds me of GI Joe. It's like knowing's half the battle, right?
Yep.
Knowing's half the battle. Well, there's another half, folks, and that's doing, going out and getting it done. Now, that's easier said than done. And I think you started touching on how we can do that. And I think it's good communication that helps that, right? Because one of my questions coming up is how do you get the teams to work together? And I think once you start to do that, and that element that helps those teams work together, I think that's kind of the same element that helps everything run smooth too. You'll probably kind of talk about that.
Yeah, yeah. So, being in sales, if there's any sales leaders on this call today, first off, I want to make sure that we all understand that building a good culture is really important internally. But you also have to have alignment with your operations leaders as well, because the sales teams out there selling, selling, selling. Right? We've got to, in order to grow the business and retain our customers, we have to continue to sell whatever our product or service is. But if that alignment isn't there with our operations team, it just doesn't make sense. So having our leaders in alignment and having that right culture internally is so
Mm,
critical
yeah.
to communications. But as far as basically coming together, like internally as individual stakeholders, so let's say, maybe your management team or leadership team isn't with you on a daily basis, and it's you as an individual. Uh, One of the best approaches I could say you could take is having, maybe monthly or even a biweekly uh, Teams call or a meeting if you're in office, and just getting alignment with what your sales look like
Mm,
versus what operations assumes it is. Because
mm,
let's be honest, salespeople, what we're communicating with our client and what we're communicating back to the sales team or to the operations team doesn't always compute right. So we got to make sure that we're in alignment with how operations is receiving that information.
mhm.
And once everybody is actually on the same page, then I feel like we can actually deliver a good product. So,
Getting on the same page. Yeah,
yep.
that's good. That's good. And honestly, it's really about understanding what the agenda, what the goal is too. So,
Hmm.
like, if we can if we can always kind of circle back around, what is the ultimate goal? I mean, what are our objectives, and wh- how are we doing? Here's a big one. How are we doing on executing on these objectives? So we know what we're supposed to be doing. We know how we're supposed to be doing it. We know that we did some of it. How did we do any of it? Like,
Yep.
oh, that gives you. I call this the 1%, the 1% increase. If you just review what you did yesterday, you'll be 1% better than you were yesterday. If you just review it,
Oh, yeah.
just the reviewing of it. Like I want to talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
that. I know you're big into that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can't remember who said it recently. I think it might have been on a TED Talk. I'll have to think back through that, but he was talking about a similar kind of approach you have, Rob,
Mhm.
where it's like consistent improvement just takes, the learning methods behind it. So it's like, if you have 5 minutes walk from, your office to your local coffee shop, take that 5 minutes to learn your new language or learning to knit or whatever it is you're wanting to do. It's like you
Yes.
can fill up your time with learning something new or consistently improving. So
Yes.
yeah, I completely agree with you that if you take that little bit of time, there's always opportunities to improve for sure.
That's it. Mental process improvement, huh?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about automation and helping to work through these complex manufacturing workflows and ultimately increasing efficiency. So, but let's talk about
Hmm.
how that happens, Heidi. How does that happen?
Yeah, this is a good one. So as far as engineering goes, I love it because when you get a bunch of engineers in the room, uh, it's like there's probably a million plus one in a day infinity ways to skin a cat. And there needs to be that one person that kind of hyper focuses on that end objective, which is, like you said, how can we be more efficient by automating certain processes?
Mm-hmm.
And I love having those conversations with our engineers, whether again it's with interactive design or if whether it's with a customer, because those efficiencies at the end of the day are what the objective is, right? Like how
Mm-hmm.
can we get more efficient? How can we have better output or throughput is like one of the terms we use in manufacturing. So if
Mm.
we start with that in mind, there's so many ways that we can automate and improve processes. It's just
Yes.
how do we get there? So as far as like what we're seeing right now, there's a lot of different tools out there. From an EMS system or like an ERP system.
Mm-hmm.
There's things like Ignition. Um, there's a few others out there that I would definitely get behind, from automating and helping you um, get the clear data around how your machines are flowing and what they're doing and what that
Mm.
data means, especially with the types of operators we have now. So a lot of our manufacturers, again, whether they don't have enough laborers, or if they do have operators, they don't have the technical experience that they
Mm.
used to. So we have to make things easier. So the
Yeah.
interface has to be less complex.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is, we're automating workflows on the HMIs, which is just like a computer screen on the actual machine that helps us make the things that we're making. And then once we have a clear workflow for the operators to utilize, all of that data is then extrapolated and sent back to like what we call a control room. And then that control room is then able to determine from that data, okay, is my machine, running at rate? Is it below? Is there an issue? Does maintenance need to be scheduled? Um, from an overall operation, like a automation standpoint, we're seeing things even get mobilized now. So from an IoT perspective, uh, maybe there's a flow sensor on the machine and the maintenance manager needed to take an hour break on lunch, but our manufacturers don't stop. It's 24/7. So even though he's taking that hour lunch, he needs to know if that machine goes down. So now where
Mm-hmm.
he's getting a notification on his phone on his lunch break, hey, that machine went down because we've now automated that process.
Mm.
Uh, so that's a little bit more on the
Yeah.
software side of the
Yeah.
machine versus
Yeah.
that mechanical automation.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as like the mechanical automation, that's where you'll see the fun robots, um, and the vision systems that'll automate quality inspection.
Right.
Robots are automating the palletizing, packaging, even assembly. There's just so many different ways from a complex manufacturing process that we're
Mm.
automating manufacturing. I mean, we could take a 2 whole day
Right.
talk.
Well, that's funny. I do want to hear another one of your use cases, though. I want to hear another story of a success story. I love success stories.
Yeah,
We can
yeah.
talk. Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. So actually, I have a really good one for you. Um, it's been in the last, I'd say, year and a half that interactive design has been able to successfully automate a specific process for a manufacturer that was having issues with the quality of the quality inspection of a specific part for uh, a car. So they're an OEM for car manufacturers. So OEMs manufacture for the big manufacturers. It's kind of how that works for anybody who's listening.
Mhm.
And this specific manufacturer OEM was struggling with their quality inspection of that part. And they used to do it manually. They would have, several operators testing each one of these parts at, six operators, sometimes plus per day, per shift, three shifts a day. Naturally, you can imagine the cost around that. And not only the actual quality itself was lacking, parts were getting missed or certain elements, whether it was the measurement, the thickness, the retention, the tolerance, it just didn't match up with what the customers needed, the end
Mhm.
customer needed. So what we did was we automated that process for them and created a fully automated testing cell,
Mhm.
which basically is just like a little box where our automation uh, concept is then put in line with their current automation process. And then parts are then flowed into it to be inspected. And then each part of that quality is inspected with the different types it needs. So in this case, it needed vision,
Yeah.
it needed a pull test, which is that, you know, is it strong enough to hold a certain weight capacity? And then does it meet the measurements that it's supposed to? And then also there's a few other material testing that it needed that we did. And we came on top. It was great.
Mm.
Our engineers developed the machine. We were able to successfully get the FAT, which is a factory acceptance test, and then the on-site SAT, which again is just another way that they accept the machine. It's now been running on site and it's been doing so well for the customer. Now the end customer,
Mm.
so the the big automotive client who buys the produced car is saying, "We love the way that you're testing this specific part. That we want more." So they're going to have a couple other cells developed
Nice.
specifically for that. Um, and again, and why this is so important in regards to automation is a few things. Not only did it help the actual quality of the part, it
Mhm.
helps the safety of the material. So the end customer now can have that guarantee of feeling safer driving that vehicle. I
Mhm.
know I do,
Mhm.
because knowing how many were passing through not having the quality acceptance it probably should have made me
Right.
a little bit worried.
Yeah.
So now that I know that those parts are coming through at close to 100%, makes me feel so much at ease.
That's good.
And the end customer feels the same way. So now that OEM has a better business model, a better product, and those operators can now be utilized in other ways that other parts of the manufacturing process need those operators. I know a lot of people get nervous
Hmm.
about hearing automation's going to, steal my job. And I'm telling you right now, there's so much work in manufacturing, at least in the next 20 some years, it's
Yeah.
just not going to happen. So,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, very good. Very good. Hot diggity dog. That's a good one. That's a really good one right there. Okay. Yeah. And so and for all those, yes, automation is, there's is taking certain jobs and doing certain tasks. We'll say that. I like saying taking tasks more than jobs, because a job is just a bunch of tasks. Let me tell you something right now, though. If you're doing a repetitive task, you should stop it. Okay, you should never do that again. It was okay in the early 1900s, right? When we first started doing it, right? It was okay. It was fine. It was new. We were new at this, but now we want to spend time with our families. We want to spend more time in creative thought. You can't be in creative thought in repetitive work. So, Heidi, that was a good breakdown. Really good breakdown. Thank you for that. All right, we're coming in for a landing. So I want to get your best piece of business advice and your favorite quote.
So, so as far as business advice, I would say if you have a part in your business that you can't scale because you don't have enough people and you can't find the people to do it, and your orders are coming in and you can't fulfill the orders, it's time to automate. So that would be my best piece of business advice is to automate, automate, automate. And then my favorite quote, gosh, I wish I would have prepared something better, Rob, but I won't say it exactly. So whoever's watching, please feel free to look up the actual exact quote. But my favorite quote is if somebody asks you to hop on the rocket, don't ask how or why, just hop on.
Oh.
Yeah, and I I can't remember who said it, but
I like that.
I'll definitely put it in the chat after this. But it's
Yes.
one of my favorites because I'm always in the constant growth mode. I'm always in the like hyperscale mode, and it's like if somebody tells me you've got an invite on this, rocket to space, this space rocket, I'm not going to ask why or when. I'm hopping on.
Going on. I love it. I love it. And that sounds like an action taker. That's
Yep.
what it sounds like. That's good, Heidi. What's the best way for folks to get in contact with you and find out what you're doing? And also, I know you're getting ready to, you got a podcast. You were on a break, but you're getting ready to come back in. Let's go ahead and share everything. I want them to know everything that you're doing.
Yeah. So please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Interactive design has a lot of things going on right now in manufacturing, especially in the automation space. You'll definitely be able to reach out to me via my email, which I'll put in the chat if Rob doesn't for us today.
Yeah, I got
Please feel free to do that. And then, yes, I do have my own podcast. It is on break. I will admit I travel a lot. So if you do follow me on LinkedIn, you'll notice my little like, where in the world is Heidi today? Because I travel a lot right now. So as soon as I kind of roll that back as far as travel goes, I'll be back on the podcast. But it's called Coffee Time Chats, and it's a fun podcast where we talk a lot about STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math. And I have a lot of local people come on and even national, international people. So if you're interested in talking about STEM, please feel free to let me know. And then always feel free to just link up with me and talk to me about anything manufacturing or STEM. I love it. You can also reach out to us on the Women in High Tech organization if you're here at Indiana. We're welcome to all. We have our Leading Light Awards coming up. So please come if you'd love that. And then, of course, reach out to me for anything manufacturing automated related.
That's good. That's good. Heidi from the family of manufacturers. All right. The family of manufacturers this is good. This is good. And we are evolving too. We are such an evolving people. We are an evolving species. And so we are moving fast. But I tell you something, folks, in business, you can get lost. You got to get somebody to help you find your way. All right. Heidi is that person. It can be dark out there, but with a little bit of awareness, it can be your flashlight. All right. And that flashlight can be the flashlight that shows you that one line item that takes you up 300%. Son of a gun. Incredible.
It's true. And sometimes when you're looking at something too long, you just miss those little things.
Yep.
And having someone like me and my engineering team, or even Rob and his team, help you just have a different set of eyes, you can really, really start to see some of those gaps in your business and then realize, oh my word, how did we miss this little part? And it's not your fault. You've just been looking at it for a really long time, and having someone like us on your team to help you out. We're there to help scale your business and obviously improve your revenue. So please reach out.
Yes. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you all for watching it. This is the Automation Nation podcast. Remember, you don't know what you don't know, so get around someone who knows more than you know, and you just might know what you need to know. Until next time.
There you go.
Automation Nation, Automation Nation, Automation Nation, around the nation, automation Automation Nation, automation.